Hello and welcome to another episode of Answered Questions. This week we've got the full fam on. Hello everyone.
Hello.
What's up?
Hi.
Hello?
And this week the topic of today is it cancel culture or consequence culture? All right. So I guess a little bit of background. The whole thing's been in the news this year, recently, where, say recently, feels like you say anything and people are like, you're fucking canceled. But then there's been like some genuinely terrible people that have been quote unquote canceled and they've been like thrown a hissy fit. And people are like, oh, it's just consequences for your actions. So, family, how do you come down on this topic? Is it people canceling people for petty shit? Or is it right? Is it justified? Is it consequences for your actions?
I feel like that the majority of what happens with this so-called cancel culture is just it's not consequences for your actions. It's just butthurt snowflakes and so-called quote-unquote woke people trying to social justice warrior their way into fame, or they feel like they're crusading for a cause which they might have no reason to crusade for no reason, but they want to do it so they look good for people and get that clout. And
Chasing that
and
clout.
some people just want to ruin other people because they're jealous of their success or other such things. I also feel that there is a large double standard with this, meaning that comes and that stems mainly from the left, because though in my experience in perusing the interwebs, it seems as though a lot of people with a far left leaning persuasion in their political ideology or their I don't even want to say morals tend to cancel people that they don't agree with, but then somebody from their camp could do something similar or the same as the person that they canceled, and suspiciously there is no outcry.
Sis, what is your opinion on this?
They don't seem to be canceling the people that have been doing it the longest. They're kind of like, oh, they're set in their ways. It's not a big deal. Somebody else comes along and speaks their mind, and they're like, oh no, you've offended me. Fuck off and grow a skin.
Good one.
Short, sweet, to the point.
I'm sorry, I'm very tired this morning. I'm sorry. No, fuck you. Other people are allowed to have a difference of opinions.
And always count on Felicity to get straight to the point with a colorful adjective.
They are sentence enhancers, and I use them appropriately.
Liberally. I think woke, cancel culture, whatever, are missing the point. You are taking what you feel is appropriate actions and thoughts of today and applying them to things of yesteryear and canceling those because they don't agree now. Yes, Gone with the Wind was very much something that, glorified whatever you want to call it, plantation owners, whatever. That was and it's horrible to say, that was the norm of the day. You can't take today's viewpoints and apply it to something 100 years ago when it was different. We've learned from that. I don't think you need to cancel it. You have to learn the lessons from the past and understand why we go, that was so wrong. You don't own people. Nobody should be owned by anybody. You should treat people with respect, regardless of anything, any little difference or anything, you still have to treat people with respect. They're a person. And by saying this was wrong, dragging up stuff people said 20 and 30 years ago and land basing them for that and canceling everything they say and saying they're awful, but letting somebody else on your team, so to speak, apologize for it and move on. It's not a healthy thing. You have to learn from the past.
Right.
And going off Mom's point, and I've mentioned this before in other talks with people, I am not, I'm not big on Disney and everything they do, but to Disney's credit, on Disney Plus, they did not just remove all of the old cartoons and movies that they put on there. Instead,
they didn't put on Song of the South, I can tell you that.
Okay, well, for the most part. But, some of the older Disney animated films, I grew up with, and even people before us grew up with, they put a disclaimer at the front of them that said, this was a different time period, something to this effect. This is a different time period. This is how things were back then. This has no place in like our society today, pretty much watch at your own discretion, type thing. So they're not, in that regard, they're not burying the past and trying to rewrite history and act like it didn't happen, but they at least put a disclaimer at the front of it to let people know that, this isn't their viewpoint now. And also, I think it could be used as a good teaching moment and talking point on how things were back in the day and how we've learned from that and moved forward.
Look, the problem you've got in this country is you're all easily offended anymore. Everyone land of the free, home of the brave has become land of the easily offended. I mean, you can't say anything to anybody anymore without someone getting upset. And a good example of this is, and this is how we are teaching people to use this, social justice warriors or woke or whatever you want to call it. At my job the other day, we don't allow solicitation for apartment complexes because we're university, housing. And so obviously we want to house the students, and you're not allowed to go into the housing buildings without being accompanied by the student that lives there. But we had an apartment complex just wandering through the halls handing out flyers, for their apartment complex, trying to get the kids to go live there. I pulled them up and told them to get out. You're soliciting. It's not allowed. It's against the law. You're trespassing as well. That's against the law. And they were two African-American ladies, young ladies. And the first words out of their mouth were, "This is racial profiling." And it's like, no, this is me kicking you out because you're doing something illegal. But we've trained people now that they can that can be their go-to for whatever it is,
I've got to just to jump in here real quick, Dad. My favorite example of this, there's it was a radio show, I forget what it was, but it was this African American lady that was hosting it, and she had a guest on, and the guest had a different opinion than her during the episode. And the guy was saying during the episode, though, he was like, "Look, I worked, for everything that I've had, I've worked my way up, from the bottom." And this lady goes, "Well, Dave, that's just white privilege, whatever." And he goes, "How do you mean white privilege? Explain to me how you mean white privilege." She goes, "Well, things have been easier for you than it has been for other people. That's a whole other conversation. I don't even want to go there." And the guy pulls her up. He goes, "Hey, whoa, hold on." He goes, "I think whoever did your research for you didn't tell you," but he goes, "I'm black."
I remember that because she didn't look at the guy, and I've heard that soundbite, and then she just kind of just inserts foot and mouth,
Yep,
and goes from there. This is one of the things that aggravates me the most is that, look, to a degree, yes, there has been systemic issues, but I feel by and large that anybody anywhere can bust their ass and get out of the situation they're in. And instead of using excuses like, oh, the system's against me or anything else like that, and making excuses for your situation, and passing blame to somewhere else and not taking it upon yourself to work and get out of your situation, that has been lost over the years. And instead, everyone just passes the blame and passes the buck and says, woe is me, give me my handout, blah, 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 instead of taking the onus on themselves to say, look, this situation is fucked, but if I work at it, I can get out of the spot where I'm at.
What irritates me is I see it a lot when I go out, as I Instacart shop on the side. I see it a lot as people get so easily offended and they feel like they need to start a fight. And nobody knows how to just let things roll off of them anymore. Like if I got offended every time a guy hit on me and I told him no thanks, I'm not interested, and they went, well, you're a dyke, I just go, how did you know? Like I can get offended and just like rip into them, or I can just let it roll off me and look at them and go, you are absolutely right, sir, you have the wrong equipment, try again.
Sis just looks at the dude and goes, surprise, shorty, I like pussy.
Have you guys seen that? Joke's on you, I'm into that shit.
It throws them off because when you don't respond with anger, they don't know how to respond back. I'm just like, you are correct, sir. Are we stating facts now, you giant douchebag?
Well, I want to bring up another point here. And, you know, like, it feels like everything's gone back, you know, to like a mob justice mentality. You say anything online. And
no, that went so well for the French.
Yeah. People are so quick to be like, cancel, whatever. And you don't get that, you know, trial, like innocent until proven guilty, whatever. But the most egregious example of this I've seen was the other day. Chelsea Handler put out a tweet.
I hate that bitch.
And she said, and it goes, quote, so pathetic that there is a trial to prove that Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd when there's video of him doing so. And somebody replied to her and said, we need a trial or our justice system would be even more chaotic than it already is. To which she replied, perhaps we skip trials when there's audio and video footage of the murder.
What I cannot stand Chelsea Handler. Just a dumb woman. I'm trying to be nice, stupid broad. And I hate the fact that rhetoric has been pushed more and more. Like, this is not a country built on like we said, mob justice. There's a reason we have a justice system, and yes, the justice system needs reform. There's plenty of issues in the justice system, but if you get rid of the justice system, like the person that responded to that tweet, it's going to be even more chaotic. There's like it's set up in such a way that it's it just looks at straight, for the most part, at the cold hard facts and evidence. So yes, there needs to be a trial, and the audio and video evidence thing that happened, you know, the recording that happened of that incident is cold hard evidence that the jury and the judge looks at and goes, okay, yes, this is unequivocally proving that this dude is guilty of murder. But you have to take all of that recording in context, and you have to leave emotion out of it. If we were to get rid of the justice system and just go off knee-jerk reactions that people have nowadays, like the social media court does, nobody gets the full story, and then you'll have perhaps even more innocent people getting put away or sent to, well, the left won't do this because they don't like the death penalty, but you know, sent to death row or whatever,
right? Yeah.
Without a trial, and so then all you have is a kangaroo court for everything. And then we've let the whim of the people decide the fate of someone's life without the best possible evidence or, you know, proceedings being taken place. Like Squash said, the innocent until proven guilty thing has been lost on everyone. Even if you know or you feel that the person's guilty, you have to give them their fair shake in court, because that's how the justice system works, and it works in such a way as that it makes it public as well, to say, look, if you do this and there's, here's the evidence against you. This is what's going to happen to you based on a, for the most part, fair court of law.
Well, they'd never come up with anything to replace it with. Like, let's get rid of the court system. Okay, what do you want to replace it with?
Right.
Where do you want to go from there? And I think probably to a great extent, this country has been so sheltered about what actually goes on in in the world and in other countries.
Yeah.
There's countries in the world that still stone women that commit adultery. There's countries in the world that chop people's hands off if they're caught stealing. You want to bring that in? Is that what you're striving for?
We've had the Wild Wild West, and that was just crazy justice, if that. So we moved away from that to a more civilized system or whatever. But I mean, like, you want to go back to the Wild Wild West where you have a group mentality? Oh, that didn't work, let's hang them. And come to find out, oh, we hung the wrong person. Sorry, lady, your husband's dead and you're going to die because you can't provide for your family. We've done that. Let's learn from those mistakes. Let's calm down and actually have a conversation and listen to what somebody is saying. Like, that's why I brought up the art of conversation in, what was it, season 1? We talked about it. Like, that's part of the problem. People don't know how to converse and actually hear to listen instead of hearing to respond. A lot of times everybody has the same idea, but they're coming at it from a different point of view, and they're just not listening. And so you're not getting anywhere.
One of the things on that point is and I talked about this on our other podcast, is there was a bunch of talking heads on Fox recently, and Alex pointed this out. And listening to it while he was like watching it, the two people that were yelling at each other were saying the exact same thing. But instead of listening to each other and trying to decipher and realize, oh, we're saying the same thing, all they did was just yell at the other person when the one person said something that they didn't necessarily agree with or worded their point in a different way. And they just sat there and yelled at each other for 30 minutes. And everybody was like, well, this was great. We got nowhere because you were saying the same thing. You just wanted to yell louder than the other person to get your point across because you wanted to win. And that's the thing I think that's happened more so now, is people want to win conversations. They want to come out on top. They want to be, I'm right, you're wrong, get fucked type mentality. And it's not healthy. It's not about, like, it's in conversations like these and the big topics that come up. It's not about winning the conversation. It's about starting an open dialogue and then figuring a solution based, that for the most part will make everybody happy. You can't make everyone happy. It's impossible, but you can at least get to a point where you make the majority of people happy, or at least comfortable with what the decision was.
Well, you come to a point that's good for the greater good. But we're not getting there. We're spinning. I mean, like, politics right now, to me, I hate watching anything about it because I'm like, you're acting like late elementary, junior high kids, middle school kids. I mean, like, I left that behind. I'm an adult. Let's have a conversation. Let's stop mud throwing, name calling. Let's get to the nitty gritty. Stop using catchphrases that mean nothing, that nobody knows what you're talking about because we just say it to sound good and to sound like we know what we're talking about. But you listen to some of them, like, you can't string a sentence together. You have no idea what you've said. Nobody knows what you've said. But you're going to keep talking until people just go, fine, do whatever you want. That's not how it works. You should be able to have a conversation and say, oh, well, I believe this. And then you could say, I believe this. Felicity can have a totally different point of view and say, Josh is the mediator. He goes, okay, well, you guys are all saying basically the same thing. Here we go.
But yeah, I think the be all and end all of it is it just boils down to the fact that society has just become very self-centered and selfish, and they only care about what themselves and what's good for themselves, and not about what will best help the community and that they live in.
What else do we have to say about this topic?
Basically, it boils down to learn how to let things go, because not everything directly applies to you. You are not the center of the fucking universe. Get over yourself and think about everybody else in the greater good for once.
Nice.
Stop just gut reaction like, oh, you offended me, let's cancel you. What the hell does that solve?
Point.
And also, I think people need to learn to stay in their lane and mind their own business. The thing that aggravates me the most, or not aggravates me, but one of the things that aggravates me a lot is suburban white women crusading for the African American population and trying to say, well, this is what's good for you, when they have had zero experience and walked 0 miles in any of the that populace's shoes. I saw something recently that some white lady was offended for black people because the color of Band-Aids was uninclusive to African Americans. And it was an African Americans, the couple African American content creators that I saw on this were just like, shut the fuck up. You sound dumb. We don't care about the color of the goddamn Band-Aid we put on our boo-boos.
That's
It's
the healthcare
a
issue
Band-Aid.
she focused on.
Yeah, yeah. It's like she was saying that, like, oh, the color of Band-Aids is oppressive, and everybody was like, what? Excuse me?
Yeah,
Like,
that's the joke about being woke. You're just stupid.
I mean, for the most part, they want to be woke, but you just sound like you're talking out of your ass.
Yeah,
like, I've had more intelligent farts come out than what that lady was trying to talk about.
I just want to know, like, if she didn't just have anything else to do that day. Like, she went down her checklist of stuff to do, and it was like, like clean the gutters, do laundry, be upset about the color of Band-Aids on behalf of somebody who I'm not. Make sure the kids have lunch for school.
Yeah, she's
like, where did that fall on the priority list? Where you were just like, fuck it, I'll put this out there if people need to hear it.
I feel like she woke up that morning, was going about her day, got a cut, walked into her bathroom, opened her first aid cabinet, saw the Band-Aids, and was like, I'm triggered! And then proceeded to post something on some form of social media, and everybody else was like, okay.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's made it a lot worse, is we have social media and everybody just uses it as like a stream of consciousness, and everybody just automatically gets upset about, like, I don't give a fuck what thoughts you're having when you sit like on the toilet and you're just tweeting out all this like BS. Like, fuck off. I don't need to hear it.
You're tweeting out worse than what you left in
worse than what you're putting out, yeah, at that moment.
Okay, sometimes the thoughts that are in your head do not need to go out into the world. That's why they're called your private thoughts. You don't need to like broadcast. Nobody needs to know what goes on in there.
I feel like people need to use the draft feature on Twitter a little bit more. Like, type it up, don't hit post, let it sit for a minute, come back later and go, you know what? I don't think anybody's going to care about that.
Yeah, that's why I don't post anything. Because, like, I'll look at it and I'll be like, nobody needs to know. Like, who does this help? No one? Cool. And I'll delete it. But also, this is coming from a family that's, like, putting out a podcast right now. So, like, take whatever you hear with a grain of fucking salt.
True.
Because our opinion is so important that you must hear it.
We clearly cared enough to make an episode about it.
All right, is that all that we have to say on Mom? You look like you've got stuff to say.
Well, here's the thing. When cell phones first came out, people would have conversations in public. And Dad brought the saying home, like, excuse me, ma'am, your private's invading my public space. You need to do that with a grain of salt when you do that with Twitter or any kind of social media. Does the public need to see or hear my private thoughts? 9 times out of 10, no. So, you just go, don't need to go out? No, don't.
Except for the people who post about their pets, you make my day. Continue posting about your pets.
It's like everybody constantly being in public and having a conversation on speakerphone.
I hate that.
I despise you. If you go to the grocery store and talk on the phone on speakerphone or just loud and obnoxious while you're on the phone on your AirPods,
Stop.
become not alive.
All right. Is that all we have to say on that topic?
I think so.
All right.
This was the Mom and Ben show.
Dude, you saw me almost fall asleep during this episode.
My man was literally sitting here, microphone like this, kicked back in the chair, just like.
I'm going on 3 hours of sleep here.
Same, dude. And I still have to chase down chickens. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to go to bed.
Ben, before you hit stop recording on there, I've got one final thing. So this is a silly question that's been sitting in the topic hat for a little while. But with people that identify as other species, say like deer or those idiots that are like, on all levels except physical, I am a wolf. If you get a hunting license, say for a deer or a wolf, can you shoot those people?
Well,
I did buy Hannibal Lecter's cookbook.
I mean,
Wow. Yeah.
I was going to say, if I happen to be out hunting and you want to LARP around in the woods as your so-called identified animal, and I happen to send a hot piece of lead your direction, and you happen to catch it with your chest, you identified as a deer, so I'm going to put my tag through your earlobe, find a couple of sticks, tie them to your head, and take you in. And when the family comes and asks me why I shot their family member, I'm going to ask, and because they identified as a deer, I'm going to go, I saw a deer. That's what they wanted to be identified as. You do Darwinism.
See, now that's just white privilege right there.
Oh yeah, true, white privilege, because I can just go and get a gun a lot easier and just climb a tree in my tree stand and set out corn for the poor confused soul that thought they were a deer. And that was the wrong question to ask this group of people.
Yeah.
That was the wrong question to ask this group of people.
But
we will get canceled for. I will get canceled for saying I was going to shoot someone.
Yeah.
Well, I heavily implied I'd cook and eat them, so.
I don't know. I feel like if somebody puts it out there and they're like, I am definitely not human. Don't look at my DNA, but I'm not human, whatever. And they go out there and they fucking say like they tie fake antlers to their head or whatever. And they're out there in the woods. Hey, the woods are, far away from civilization.
The woods are a lawless place.
It's a dangerous environment to be
in. The only law that matters in the woods is the law of nature.
Okay, all of that makes as much sense as me suddenly going, I'm a siren and drowning somebody. I'm still going to jail if I get caught. You want to be a deer? Go shit in the woods. Go have fun.
Yeah.
Just wear orange during hunting season.
You want to be a deer? Go shit in the woods. I'm gonna make that the new soundbite for the intro.
If you want to be a deer, go shit in the woods. Faye answered questions. On this week's episode, we discussed morons.
Yep.
They used to have places for people that identified as such things, and usually they came in a van with a couple of white jackets and a special jacket for you, and you went away for a while.
Yeah.
And sometimes pieces of your and sometimes you came back missing pieces of your brain.
Yeah, now we just put them in Congress.
Oh!
Da-da-da-da-da-da. Bow!
Bloody got him!
Look at you, Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, gotcha.
And we are all just not in the mood to have this today.
I mean, I'm fine. I've been up since
Yeah, we're good. That's
like
just
10 in the morning. Cleaned cleaned my body. Was getting ready to go get a haircut. I'm about to do laundry, so I'm good for the day. Yes, I was up at 10 because I didn't go to bed until 2:30. All right, I was having a good time with my community last night, drinking and playing games.
I've been up since
Look at me.
going since 6:30. I've moved all the plants outside. I've started getting my clocks going that I'm working on making. Let's see, what else have I done?
You want a fucking cookie?
No, it's not on my job.
I've been up since 6. I did this. La-di-da.
I've sent this before in the chat, but there's a meme, and it's from the Watchmen TV series, where it's the guy Ozymandias, but he's like standing like this, and it goes, "Dad's waiting on everybody else to get up so that they can say that they've been up since 5."
Truth. But you fucking dads will do that shit too. They get up and just make a pot of coffee and not do shit until like 8 a.m. when everybody else gets up and they're like, "Oh, finally awake, I see. You had no reason to be up at 5 a.m. What is wrong with you?"
It's called insomnia, not productivity.
Stand there and the first thing you see in the morning is judgment. Like, what? This isn't how I wanted to start my morning.
So you woke
It's like, I haven't done anything yet. Wait until I fuck up to judge me.
You woke up and chose violence.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Sorry, I got a little bit loose there right at the end, but again, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you had fun with this episode, and we'll see you guys next week. But before we go, be sure to check out my brother's podcast. I'll put the link down in the description. And please do email us. We do like to hear from our audience, and we love to get emails from you guys. So please send us a message. And thanks again. Bye.